Welcome back to the Synapse and the Stoa. I'm your host, John Sampson. On this show, we look at the toughest challenges of the human experience through a double lens: the cutting-edge neuroscience and psychology of the modern lab, and the timeless wisdom of the ancient porch. Today, we're talking about a feeling that most of us try to hide, even from ourselves. It's that sharp, cold sting you feel when you see a guy you went to high school with posting photos of his new Porsche. Or when a colleague who started after you gets the promotion you've been grinding for. We call it the green-eyed monster. We call it envy. Whether it's wealth, professional status, or physical fitness, we are hardwired to compare. We are constantly benchmarking ourselves against our peers, a lot of times to our own detriment. But here's what I want you to understand before we dive in. We all experience envy from time to time. It is a fundamental cognitive process that has shaped social hierarchies for thousands of years. What matters isn't that you feel it. What matters is whether you dwell in that envy or reframe your thoughts toward the good. The Stoics had a very specific name for this. They didn't just see it as a bad mood. They called it a pathos, a passion, or a disorder of the soul. For a Stoic like Seneca or Epictetus, envy was an intellectual error. It was a sign that your reasoning faculty had short-circuited. Today, we're going to look at why your brain treats a social injury like a physical wound. We're going to look at the Stoic Dichotomy of Control and how it serves as a shield against the pain of comparison. We'll explore how envy creates a wall of loneliness that cuts you off from the people who should be your allies. Ultimately, I want to give you a roadmap to turn that pain of comparison into fuel for your own existence. You have the power to overcome these feelings. Before we get to it, I have one small favor to ask. Hit that subscribe or follow button. It's free, and it helps us reach more people who can benefit from this show. All right, let's dive in. To understand how to beat envy, we first have to understand why it hurts so much. In neuroscience, envy is defined as a painful emotional response to someone else's superior achievements or possessions. Recent fMRI studies have shown that when you experience upward social comparison, that is, looking at someone you think is better off than you, your brain lights up in a very specific place, the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, or what we'll call the dACC. Now, why does that matter to you? Because the dACC is the same region of the brain associated with the affective component of physical pain. So when you feel stung by someone else's success, your brain isn't being metaphorical. It is actually using its pre-existing distress circuitry to signal a social injury. But here's the kicker. This pain is highly specific. It's modulated by self-relevance. If you're a guy who prides himself on his career in finance, you might feel zero envy for a professional surfer who wins a world title. But if your desk mate gets a bigger bonus, your dACC is going to fire like a Roman candle. Your brain specifically monitors threats to your identity and status within your own social sphere. And then there's the flip side, Schadenfreude. This is the pleasure we feel at another person's misfortune. In the brain, this is handled by the ventral striatum, our primary reward center. Neuroscientists have found a gain-pain reciprocity. The more envy-related pain you feel when a peer succeeds, the more reward-related pleasure your brain produces if that same peer later fails. It's a toxic loop where the relief of social inferiority is processed as a primary reward, much like food or money. But ask yourself, is that really what we want to spend our days doing? Rooting for others' failure? There is far too much Schadenfreude in the world today. We take pleasure in someone else's misery because it temporarily levels the playing field in our heads. But that pleasure is hollow. It doesn't actually make us better. It just makes the other person worse. Shouldn't we take that energy and spend it in a way that makes ourselves and then our lives a little better? Let's talk about why we do this to ourselves in the first place. In 1954, a psychologist named Leon Festinger proposed social comparison theory. His core idea was simple. Humans have an innate drive to evaluate their opinions and abilities. Since we don't have an objective ruler to measure our worth, we use other people as our yardsticks. There are two main directions that this goes. Upward social comparison, and this is when we compare ourselves to people we perceive as better or more successful. And this can be a double-edged sword. It can lead to benign envy, which motivates us to improve, or malicious envy, which makes us resentful and discouraged. And then there's downward social comparison. This is when we look at people we think are worse off. While this can provide a temporary boost to self-esteem or gratitude, it can also lead to arrogance and a lack of empathy. Fessinger's most important insight for us today is the similarity hypothesis. We don't compare ourselves to everyone. We compare ourselves to people who are like us. Just like the surfer example I mentioned before, a 35-year-old middle manager doesn't usually envy Elon Musk. The gap is too wide. But he will envy the guy in the next cubicle who just bought a bigger house. Later psychologists validated that our self-esteem is affected by the closeness of the person and the relevance of the task. If your best friend succeeds in a field you don't care about, you feel reflection. You're happy for them. But if your best friend succeeds in the exact same field you're struggling in, that's when the envy hits. In the modern world, this has been hijacked by social media. We are now in a state of hyper-comparison. Historically, you've only compared yourself to your village. Now your village is the entire world. Your brain is being flooded with upward comparison data points from people who are only showing you their highlight reels. I want you to understand that despite what you see on highly tailored social media feeds, you never know how truly happy someone else is. You are comparing your behind-the-scenes footage to their theatrical trailer. This unidirectional drive upward creates a constant sense of deficit. It makes you think you need that fancy car, giant house, or crazy expensive vacation just to be normal. But that is not reality. Let's pivot to the porch, the Stoa in Athens, where this philosophy began. For the Stoics, envy wasn't just an emotion. It was a type of distress. Specifically, they defined it as pain at another's good fortune. Now think about that definition for a second. If you are in pain because something good happened to someone else, the Stoics would say you are suffering from a logic error. Why? Because of the dichotomy of control. This is a key tenet of Stoic practice. Epictetus taught that some things are up to us and some things are not up to us. What's up to us is our opinions, our intentions, our desires, and our own character. What is not up to us is our reputation, our bank account, our health, and crucially, the success of other people. When you feel envy, you have committed two major philosophical sins. First, you have placed your happiness in something not up to you, the status of someone else. Second, you have mislabeled an indifferent as a good. The Stoics called things like money, fame, and fast cars preferred indifference. They're nice to have, sure. They are preferred, but they are indifferent to your actual happiness. Why? Because you can be a billionaire and be a miserable, hollow person. You can be a famous actor and be filled with self-loathing. The only true good for a Stoic is virtue, the excellence of your own character. And here's the secret. Someone else's success cannot take away your virtue. Someone else getting a promotion doesn't make you less courageous or less wise or less just. Being mad at someone else's success doesn't make any sense in this framework. Their success doesn't rob you of your ability to be a good person. If you are focused on your own character, you realize that the external goods they have are essentially background noise to the real work of living. Seneca provided great insights into this concept. He was a man of the world, a statesman, a writer, and one of the wealthiest men in Rome. He knew what it was like to be at the top, and he knew how much everyone else wanted to knock him off. Seneca viewed envy not just as a character flaw, but as a passion, a pathos, a violent, irrational movement of the soul that contradicts nature. To Seneca, envy is a disorder of the soul caused by an erroneous judgment. You feel envy because you have made a logical error. You've decided that someone else's external success is a good, and that your lack of it is an evil. But Seneca's most biting insight is that envy is a form of self-torture. He famously noted that envy is a self-tormentor, a plague that rots the container it's in. While you are busy being angry at someone else, they are enjoying their life. You are the only one suffering. The envious man is like a prisoner who hates his neighbor because the neighbor's cell has a better view of the wall. Both are still in prison, but only one is miserable about the view. Seneca would argue that being mad at someone else's success doesn't make any sense. If the other person's success does not objectively deprive you of your own virtue and your ability to choose correctly, then feeling pain over it is a logical contradiction. It's a sign, as the Stoics said, of an uneducated character. Seneca wrote extensively about how envy is the pestilence of friendship. When you view your friends as rivals, you break the common good. Envy leads to social withdrawal and destructive gossip. You stop being able to connect with people because you are constantly scanning them for things they have that you don't. This brings us to the issue of loneliness. We talked about loneliness in depth in episode 15, and if you haven't listened to that, be sure to check it out. Envy is one of the most isolating emotions known to man. When you view life as a zero-sum game, where if you win, I lose, everyone becomes a rival. You stop seeing your friends as brothers and start seeing them as benchmarks. This leads to what the Stoics called a withdrawal from the common good. Stoicism is built on the idea of oikiosis, the cradle of affection. We are meant to expand our circle of concern to include others. Envy does the opposite. It shrinks your world down until it's just you and your resentment. It creates a deep loneliness because you can no longer be authentically happy for anyone. You distance yourself from the successful person because their presence is a reminder of your perceived failure. The more you pull others down in your mind, the further you drift away from the community that could actually support you. You become an island of bitterness in a sea of potential allies. Epictetus had a brilliant way of dismantling envy that I want every person listening to this to memorize. It's called the market metaphor. Imagine you're at a market. You see a man walking away with a massive, expensive fish. You feel a pang of envy. Why does he get the fish? I want that fish. Epictetus would ask, what was the price of the fish? Maybe the price was 5 denarii. The other man paid the 5 denarii and got the fish. You kept your 5 denarii and didn't get the fish. Are you worse off? No. You have what you chose, the money. He has what he chose, the fish. You cannot have the fish and the money. Now, apply that to the guy with the corner office or the ripped physique. What was the price he paid? Maybe the price of the corner office was 80-hour work weeks, missing his kids' soccer games, and constant stress. Maybe the price of the physique was 2 hours in the gym every morning for 5 years and never eating a slice of pizza. Are you willing to pay that price? If you aren't, then why are you envious of the goods he bought? You kept your price, your free time, your sleep, your relaxed diet. You have the power to overcome these feelings by simply being honest about the transaction. We should be rooting for one another to succeed. Look to them as an example of how to achieve these things that you think you desire. Then look at how they achieved them and assess whether you think they did it in a good or virtuous way. If they did, great. There's one roadmap you can follow. You now know the price. Decide if you want to pay it. If they didn't, if they cheated or sacrificed their integrity to get there, be thankful that you can recognize that you don't want to go down the same path. You saved your character, which is worth more than any external fish. Wishing ill upon others, that classic malicious envy, will never bring you happiness. It only keeps you stuck in the pain loop of the dACC, waiting for a hit of Schadenfreude that will never actually satisfy you. To avoid falling into envy and other traps, the Stoic Emperor Marcus Aurelius used a technique called the view from above. He would imagine looking down on the world from the stars. From that distance, the fancy car, the giant house, the crazy expensive vacation, they all look like dust. They are transient. They are here today and gone tomorrow. You might think you want that giant house, but ask yourself, will you suddenly be happy forever once you move in? That's not how life works. We have a hedonic treadmill. You'll just move on to the next thing that you desire. If you don't find peace inside the house you have now, you won't find it in a mansion. Only satisfaction with yourself and your character will bring lasting happiness. You need to find that inner peace and the ability to be happy within whatever circumstances you find yourself. This isn't about giving up on your goals. It's about realizing that the goals are preferred indifference, while the way you pursue them is what actually matters. And let's touch on loneliness again. Social media makes us feel connected, but it actually fosters a deep sense of isolation through envy. We scroll, we compare, we feel inferior, and we withdraw. We become lonely together. The Stoic remedy for this loneliness is to remember that we are part of a larger whole. We are social animals. When you celebrate another person's success, you reinforce the bond of the community. You stop being a spectator of his life and start being a participant in a shared human excellence. Now, I've spent a lot of time tearing down malicious envy, but there is a way to use this energy for good. Remember that I mentioned psychologists distinguish between malicious envy and benign envy. Malicious envy is the pain with a wish to harm. It's rooting for their failure. Benign envy is pain with a wish to improve. Aristotle called this zelos, or emulation. It's the feeling of, he did it, he's a guy just like me, and he achieved that. That means it's possible for me too. You can use benign envy as a way to motivate yourself to strive by emulating an appropriate ideal. If you see a man who is a great father, a loyal friend, and a hard worker, let that sting of comparison move you toward action. Don't wish he was a worse father. Try to be a better one yourself. This is how we turn the pain of the dACC into the virtuous action. Instead of the energy going into the Schadenfreude reward center when they fail, you direct that energy into your prefrontal cortex to plan your own growth. Refuse to dwell in the envy. Reframe your thoughts toward the good. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with some practical steps you can incorporate into your life starting right now to overcome feelings of envy and build a more fulfilling life. Step 1. The dACC reality check. The next time you feel that sting, label it. Say to yourself, my brain is sending a social pain signal because I am comparing myself to an external factor. Just naming it reduces its power over you. Step 2, apply the dichotomy of control. Ask, is this thing I'm envious of up to me? If it's someone else's success, the answer is no. Therefore, it is nothing to you. Refocus your energy immediately on your own character, the one thing that is up to you. Step 3, calculate the price. Use Epictetus's market metaphor. Look at the person you envy and ask, what did they pay for that? If you aren't willing to pay the price in time, effort, or stress, let the envy go. You chose to keep your currency. Step 4, root for the other guy. This is the hardest one, but it's the most effective. When you feel envy toward a friend, go out of your way to congratulate them or help them. By acting like an ally, you train your brain to stop seeing them as a rival. This is the ultimate cure for the loneliness that envy creates. And step 5, the filter audit. Remember that you are seeing a highlight reel. No one posts their failures, their bouts of loneliness, or their moments of self-doubt. You never know how truly happy someone else is. Wishing ill upon others will not bring you happiness. It only keeps you stuck in the pain loop. Take that energy and spend it in a way that makes your life better. You have the power to overcome these feelings. You can find that inner peace, regardless of your circumstances. Thank you for listening to the Synapse and the Stoa. I'm John Sampson. For our show notes for this and all of our episodes, be sure to check out our website at synapseandstoa.com. And if you're interested in early access to new episodes, suggesting ideas for future episodes, or connecting with me directly, be sure to check us out on Patreon. Thank you for listening.